Hi everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Delighted to be talking once more with author Nancy Collins, and delighted that the Vampirella poster is still up from the last time we talked
Yeah,
as well.
well, I paid good money to get that thing framed, so it's going to stay up there.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Now, folks out there will know you for your work in urban fantasy, the Golgotham series, Sonja Blue, lots of comics, Vampirella being one of those, Swamp Thing, Army of the Dead. I believe I got that title
Army of
right.
Darkness.
Army of Darkness, Army of Darkness. There it is.
Army of
Yes,
Darkness,
yes.
Furious Road.
That's right. That's right. And Blade Runner. Very recently,
Yeah.
Blade Runner as
Yes,
well.
I've been doing a lot of work in the Blade Runner franchise.
Yeah, yeah. So you're also one of those authors who scared me at a young age with the Swamp Thing books, in the best of all ways. I knew I had an interesting book on my hands with Swamp Thing, so glad to be talking with you again.
Same
And
here. Same
oh,
here.
thank
Thanks
you,
for
thank you.
inviting me back.
Anytime, anytime. So talking about the horrific, talking about the speculative and fantastic, curious about what inspires you about writing in those areas and those worlds.
Um, it's always been part of me, I guess. It never occurred to me to write any other way and
Hmm.
write any outside the genre. I I was a weird monster kid growing up back in the 60s, which was probably the perfect time for it.
Yeah.
With all the like the Munsters TV shows and the Addams Family. My paternal grandfather was a huge Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi fan and Lon Chaney Sr. And he introduced me to all the classic Universal monsters and what have you, as a kid, and it was just part of me. Plus, that was back when you had Casper. All the comic books aimed at kids were like Casper and Hot Stuff, the Little Devil, and Milton the Monster. Um, and I was also about the same early age as the Marvel stuff, which had,
Hmm.
I mean, the Hulk was very kind of monsterish. He was kind of like a Frankenstein monster stand-in, and
Hmm.
um, Thor had definitely had a supernatural element to him. Doctor Strange and all that, and the Thing. Um, so you'd have good monsters and weird, like good misunderstood monsters and stuff like that. So it 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 never occurred to me that I would be doing something besides that. And some of the early, I mean, and of course, I was reading things like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and which is just weird,
Yeah, yeah.
like Roald Dahl, and then as I got older, and I go, oh, here's some other books by the guy who wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, yeah, and they all
Yeah.
happen to be like extremely macabre, dark. Uh, uh, Crime or horror stories. Um, and I and Alfred Hitchcock was doing his books for children, which nowadays, I don't think it, the reading level would have to be considerably lowered,
Mm-hmm.
considering a lot of those stories. But he had a whole thing, whole like Alfred Hitchcock's, mystery stories for young readers and horror stories for young readers and espionage stories for young readers. And I definitely lean towards the mystery and the horror stories. And it was just never, nobody in the family was surprised. And also I was like, although a lot of them thought I'd be more a science fiction writer because I was also really into Star Trek and stuff like that. So they just,
Hmm.
said, they knew I was going to be a writer, and they knew I was going to be writing weird stuff at some point. So I didn't really surprise anybody in my family when the time came.
You went right in the direction of your gifts and your interests. Love it.
Yeah,
Love it.
yeah, yeah. What I knew, fantasy, science fiction, stuff like Robert E. Howard, uh, which led me into Lovecraft, and also introduced me to the weird tales and the stuff from the pulp era. And I would ask my mother about the pulps, and because she used to read them when she was a teenager and growing up, and she would have answers for 'em. My grandfather had um, a huge collection. He was a subscriber to Argosy magazine till the day he died,
Oh wow.
and he had all the uh, Edgar Rice Burroughs, uh, Barsoom, and Tarzan first appearances and stuff like that stacked up. Um, so it wasn't, my and my my family's attitude was I don't care what she's reading as long as she's reading,
Mm-hmm.
because there was enough illiteracy surrounding me in rural Arkansas for that to be a real issue. And my great grandmother, who I never knew, she died shortly before I was born, but I'm named after
Mm.
her. She was an educator.
Oh
She
wow.
graduated from Vanderbilt, back when it was all woman school. But basically best known for being a teacher's school and
Hmm.
mostly a woman's university. So, uh, and I should tell you how far back that was.
Yeah.
So,
What a cool educational lineage. I love that.
yeah, we still have teachers in the family.
Nice, nice. Well, I was wondering about your process, and you can, I mean, in some ways, I think writing is its own kind of teaching in a way of at least sharing ideas. And I always think of authors as sort of voices that are pairing up with me when I'm working in the classroom. I'm wondering about moving from prose to comics and how you sort of deftly maneuver those changes in format.
Well, some I didn't really have that much trouble with it because then again, I grew up reading comics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Although some writers do have issue don't transition as well. Either you do or you don't, and the same can be said for people who start as off as comic writers and then transition into being novelists and short story writers. Um, it's a rare, I mean, Gardner Fox is probably the best known example of one of the early guys who who walked both walks. I mean, he wrote novels and short stories during the pulp and golden age science fiction era up until the day he died, and then he came into comics, and then when DC got tired of him, he went back into writing novels and just basically writing pulps again, but for the paperback market in the 60s.
Yeah.
Um, and For me, it was once I knew what the format was for a script, it was relatively easy because it wasn't any different than writing than the format for me, the formatting of a stage play, like
Hmm.
a one act stage play. And um, once I knew what the formatting was, and the realization that I didn't have to do all of the heavy lifting,
Right, right.
that was being done by someone else. That was being done by the artist, and that was, that was, I wasn't going to have to like pour nearly as much effort as I did into a novel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, I wasn't going to, the description that I was writing, what it was basically a conversation between me and the artist,
Yeah.
as opposed to having to describe what I'm seeing in exacting detail for whoever may be picking up the book. And in this case, um, it's I never tried to do my artist dirty by like, and then they go over the hill and they see the Confederate army battling the 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 Yan the I'll say the Yankees. Okay, that shows where I'm from. They're battling on the other side, and they're both riding, and both sides are riding dinosaurs.
Right, right.
And this is one panel. I try not to do that to them. I really do. I try to take into consideration what my artist is having to do, and sometimes I'm dealing with people who aren't even from this country,
Yeah.
so I have to take, you know, cultural changes into consideration, and nowadays it's a lot easier to just take uh, find an image of what I'm talking about, just inserting it into the document,
Oh
and
yeah,
it
yeah.
looks like this. Insert JPEG, and which is a lot easier than trying to find it in a magazine, tear it out, and staple it to the printout and mail it off to them. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
so it's uh, the, the biggest change in my comics writing is finally learning to move the story along through dialogue and not necessarily through chunks of narrative blocks.
Hmm.
That's the biggest change. I think it's the biggest stumbling block for a lot of people to start off as writers. And
Yeah.
then you get the other end where people who I've had come from television, and then it's a very similar formatting, but they don't have to describe as much because and then and so they're and then they go, well, you just draw something here. They don't give their artists enough direction or suggestion.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if something, and for the most part, I'm not the person that has to draw it, so I'm going to give them a lot of leeway in that. It's like however you can get it to work. But if a particular passage or moment in the comic is important, I usually try to block it so you'll know who's in the foreground, who's in the background, what if someone's in the background, what they're doing,
Hmm. Hmm.
especially if it's pertinent to whatever's going on in the dialogue. You know, and then Alexa decided I was talking to her.
It's okay.
So sorry
All are
about that.
welcome here. It's fine.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Yeah.
science
She's
fiction.
like, no, I wasn't talking to you. It's like, I'm just surprised my cat hasn't jumped up and decided to show you his butt or anything like that yet. So
Also welcome. That's totally fine. That's
he
totally
weighs
fine.
18 pounds. He'll accidentally disconnect me if I'm not careful. But uh, but yeah, it's there's a fine art to it,
Hmm.
and some you know it took me a couple of years to really get comfortable with it, and now it's it's just what I do.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
and I don't even think about it when I'm doing it, and it just I go, oh, okay, I get it. It takes me about a week to do a comic book script.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That
Once I've got the outline approved and everything. So,
great that you keep the artist in mind that way as
you know,
well.
you
It's
have to.
good
It's an
collaboration.
artist's medium. I mean,
Hmm.
there's a handful of writers and comics that can, you know, I mean, and Neil Gaiman will tell you this right off the top. You know, it's like, yeah, it's a, you know, he's lucky in that he's one of the handful of creators out there who's just an artist and artist only who has name recognition.
Hmm.
Like, you know, I mean, it was like Stan, him, Alan Moore,
Yeah.
Peter David, but most of the ones who also write, like Mike McNally, is also an artist. I mean, you get the double threats, like,
Hmm.
you know, Colleen Doran. Uh, I'm trying to think right off the top of the head. That's Ditko, Kirby. I
Hmm.
mean, it's but it's by and large it is a Kirkland is one of the few one of the other few
Hmm. Hmm.
writer only uh, who's got the name recognition. Um, but you know, and it used to be a bit different back in the '70s when people like Marv Wolfman,
Oh yeah.
Tony Isabella, um, Roy Thomas.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Trying to think who else right off the top of my head. Gary Conway. Uh, but now uh, there's very few name only, like recognizable names who are just writers.
Yeah,
And maybe those guys wouldn't have been as recognizable if they hadn't also been editors. Who knows?
yeah, yeah.
It's just how the industry's changed over the decades.
And you've managed to stay the course and very much involved with Blade Runner most recently, as I mentioned.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm doing some more work with the Blade Runner franchise for Titan. I can't really
nice.
talk about it too much right now because it's still in negotiations, but doing some more work for them.
Glad
And
glad to hear it.
yeah, yeah, they seem to like what I do. They seem to appreciate it. So yeah, I'm not gonna, and yeah, and they're willing to pay me for what it's worth, as opposed to people who want to, yeah, I want you to write on our comic, and I'm gonna pay you less than what you got back in the 1980s.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
no, no,
Don't
no,
blame me there. Don't blame me at all.
yeah. What the old saying is, like, they want your name, but they don't want to pay for your name.
Hmm, hmm.
So
We started talking genre with horror and science fiction. So before we talk about places where people can go to learn about what you're doing and upcoming things, um, curious about what you see as the differences between horror and science fiction, as well as what kind of unites them.
well, uh, well, science fiction emerged from horror in the sense of Frankenstein being the first, probably, commercially popular science fiction story, and also the first commercially well, what I wouldn't say first commercially popular horror story, because I think Edgar Allan Poe predated that. Maybe I'd have to get down and look at mine, but
Hmm.
basically, yes, I think some have described. I think Stephen King has described it, or if not him, then someone else. Someone else like that has described it as science fiction is about ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and horror is about feelings, or about, or and horror is far more, uh, or science fiction can be seen as cautionary tales or allegories about what was going on in modern society,
Hmm.
and horror is basically uh, a way of dissecting and dealing with the discomfort that comes with what's going on in modern society.
Hmm.
Um, so uh, it's there is crossover between them. I mean, Aliens is probably one of the best known examples.
Yeah.
uh, Weird horror is also. I mean, people forget that, Lovecraft started off as a science fiction writer.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean, basically, the Cthulhu mythos is technically science fantasy or science fiction, because he's from outer space. He travels throughout, some weird, and just happened to show up on our planet or in our universe, and he's perceived as a demon or as magical, when he's just an extra dimensional creature.
Hmm.
This is what part of him extrudes into our universe, because we can't see them all,
Yeah.
or any of the others of the elder gods. So it's a concept of perception, how we perceive uh, the things from beyond. Are they aliens or are they demons? That's just, same as with the Cenobites
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
Clive Barker's Hellraiser series. It's like, are they angels? Are they devils? Are they just extra? Are they like really, 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 really kinky Gallifreyans?
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
are they time travelers? What are they? They exist outside of time and space. and extra dimensional creatures that appear in our world. Um, so that's you kind of like, you know, what is Godzilla? Is he
Hmm.
science fiction? Is he horror? What is he? Is he something in between? What are monster?
Yeah.
It's a monster movie, which combines elements of both horror and science fiction,
Yeah.
as part. And yeah, it's and it's like kind of like beauty and pornography. It's it's all in the eye of the beholder, and you know it when you see it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's usually actually most of us when we get together go, yeah, I don't know what it is, but I know what I'm looking at.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, and childhood's end, right? With the overlords and Arthur C. Clarke and all of that. Like they
yeah,
appear
the
to be
the mon the
demons.
monoliths.
Yeah.
What are they? Are they threat like Spider-Man, threat or menace?
Right.
Or are they just that necessary cattle prod to get us into the next stage of our evolution?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Uh,
and some would say stuff like Mad Max, which is very clearly just science fiction, is also because of the extremity of it, is also, well, dystopia.
mhm.
Dystopian science fiction in and of itself has elements of horror in it as well, because it's just extreme, the unpleasantness of us turning into monsters,
Yeah.
to be able to fit into the society we have created for ourselves. So,
And I like those questions of society. That's part of why I enjoy horror and science fiction and dystopian stories.
it's
Uh,
all metaphor and allegory.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's how we keep, that's how we deal with things without going mad,
Hmm. Hmm.
or getting so upset that we do something we regret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've mentioned upcoming work a few times, but anything that you'd like to mention as far as where people can go to follow more of your work, anything that you can talk about that's coming up. We know that there are some things still in negotiation, so very excited to hear that. But anything that you want to leave readers and listeners with?
Well, DC has put my Swamp Thing omnibus back into print. Following, I was in the hospital earlier this year with lung embolism, and when
Mm.
yeah, and yeah, I've got some stuff going on physically, because hey, I didn't die young and leave a good looking corpse. So this is what I get for that. And so they put it back out into print as a way of helping out, which I'm thankful for. And plus, I'm not sure, but maybe something, that I'll find out eventually. But yeah, they're with the Swamp Thing movie that James Gunn's involved with.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and also, uh, like I said, I'm doing some stuff with Titan uh, that will be coming out in the next year or so. I'm in the process of getting ready to write 8 issues for them for something right now. And like I said, I'm not allowed to talk about it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the I've got I've been putting a lot of my short stories and and stuff that I actually have got the rights back to over the years, out as ebooks and print on demand through Amazon.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I've got they're all, like I said, they're all on Amazon. I've got a couple of at least 3 short story collections, including a Sonja Blue
Hmm.
collection that has stuff that's yet to be um, that has not been collected yet.
Oh,
And
great.
I'm talking with uh, a small press publisher about putting out and finally getting the long delayed Sonja Blue novel, Kill City, out. I'm actually getting towards the end of that 10-year long tunnel. Although I mean, if you want to read the first draft, which yeah, as I finish it, I'm putting it up on my Patreon.
Hmm.
If you join for $3 or more, you can read it as it goes. I think I'm on chapter 17 or 18 right now.
Nice.
Um, and uh, but I'm probably about 50 to 75 pages away from finally getting it finished. Um, yeah, assuming I don't do something stupid and end up in the hospital again. Um,
Sending all the good vibes for that
yeah,
not to be the
well,
case.
yeah. Well, I've got some good doctors helping me out right now, so I should be. And I'm trying not to make it worse for myself
Yeah.
by doing things like going out in the heat, things like
Yeah.
that. So, um, and I've got, um, uh, but if you want to find my stuff, it's on Amazon.
Hmm.
The I've got a short story collection called The Love of Monsters. Um, Another one called um, The Death's Head Tavern, and Other Fantastic Tales, which is a collection of my sword and sorcery, historical fiction, or historical fantasy fiction, and has a Solomon Kane story I wrote.
Nice.
Um,
Nice. Yeah.
that everyone say, yeah, someone should get you to write a Solomon Kane novel. I'm going, no shit, Sherlock, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do you think I put this out?
Hmm. Hmm.
It also has an Elric story and some stuff based on Moorcock, and that I did years ago, 30 years ago, and so might as well put it back out there because odds are no one's going to find it otherwise.
Yeah.
And I've also got the Sonja Blue collection, Blue Murder, which has two previously uncollected novellas in it. Um, One of Rancho Midnight and Search and Destroy, and I've got that's just something just slipped my mind. But oh yeah, I'm involved in a high end uh, uh, reprint of Richard Matheson's Hell House,
Hmm.
coming out from Suntup Publications. I mean, it's already sold out, uh,
Wow.
but um, I mean, the cheapest edition is coming out in like three different versions. Um, the cheapest one is like $180, and the very high end version of it is like 2,500. Um, it's got I did an afterword because I wrote a authorized prequel to Hell House 20 something years ago, back when
Hmm.
Richard Matheson was still alive, called Return to Hell House, um, a prequel, which is out on, which I have up on Amazon, uh, and in ebook format, and but Michael Flanagan
Yeah.
uh, wrote the forward to it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so it's getting a lot of attention. I'm assuming that's why suddenly, it's selling quite well for me. So I'm assuming that has something to do with it. It hasn't come out yet. It's coming out. The artist edition is coming out this summer, and it's illustrated. Um, the gentleman who drew it unfortunately died uh, during the pandemic.
Hmm.
I don't know if he died from COVID, but that's when he died. But he was a um, one of the character design artists on Beetlejuice,
Oh, okay.
which was the script for which was written by a good friend of mine, Michael McDowell.
Hmm.
Rest his soul. He also
Hmm.
did wrote the screenplay for Nightmare Before Christmas, and of course we got Beetlejuice coming out.
Yeah.
And I was very pleased to see Michael's name right up front. So at least Burton's treating him right.
Good, good. Glad to hear that.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
died about 24 years ago. So, um, so yeah, it's all kind of all kind of tied in together this summer. Um, and but yeah, that's what I can mention right off the top of my head right now. So
Sounds great. You're a prolific person.
yeah, yeah, I kind of have to be.
Yeah.
This is what I do for a living. I've
Yeah.
got some other stuff going off in Hollywood, but I've learned never to talk about that.
Hmm.
So, but
Yeah. And sending the good health wishes and vibes, and sending the good James Gunn wishes and vibes. May he consult with you for Swamp Thing. I'd
well,
like
he's
to
been
see a really
shooting
good one.
Superman here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. To my knowledge, I think I haven't gone down there to deal. Yeah, I mean, it's been so damn hot. I'm not going to go down there and stand around thinking maybe someone will see me and talk to me. But
Right. Right.
uh, and to my knowledge, Macon is standing in for Smallville.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah, and although I think the train station here may also be standing in for something in Metropolis, I'm not sure. It's a very old Art Deco train station,
Hmm.
pretty much untouched, and the downtown here is also um, uh, pretty much pretty much as it was back in the 1940s and 50s. It's um, they shot Watchmen here, it stood in for Tulsa
Oh, nice. Nice. Yeah.
in the 20s. And it was they shot uh, the Color Purple
Mhm.
musical movie here, Martin Luther King, the MLK movie here, because so much of it just looks uh, like it did. The storefronts look like they did back in the 50s and early 60s,
Yeah.
or if not older. So um, that that's what's been the big thing going on down here.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, you have some friends in the neighborhood, it sounds like some
Yeah,
folks
yeah.
that will hopefully connect with you to make a good Swamp Thing film. That would be
Oh,
good.
hopefully, they come back down here, or I don't know where they'll go. I mean, it's like I said, I'll find out. If they end up using anything from my run, I'll find out about it when I go to see it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
usually, and just like I did with the TV show, and then after it's canceled, I get a royalty check.
Ah, yeah.
That's how I knew they used anything of mine. I kind of like that seems from that's awful suspicious. And then
Yeah.
I got paid.
Well, good, good. It is good to get paid.
Yeah,
So I'm glad that they did that. Perhaps a little earlier than the cancellation would have been nice, but still,
yeah.
still.
Well, that was yeah, that was politics, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Well, Nancy, thank you for the time. I know that you have another gathering to get to, but
yeah, I
glad
got
to
a
talk with you
Juneteenth thing going
anytime.
on. Juneteenth trivia. How's that?
Ah, nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. As we record this, it is Juneteenth, so
yep.
yeah,
Happy Juneteenth, y'all.
yeah, yeah, and to you as well. And glad to talk anytime.
All right. Well, you have a good evening, and also have a happy 4th of July when that rolls around.